Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Appeals meeting to order. Today is September the 13th, 2017. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion for the approval of the July 12, 2017 minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the July 12th meeting.
I second.
Do we have any discussion on the minutes themselves?
None.
All right, hearing none, the minutes are passed as presented with a vote of 5-0. Okay. Next item on our agenda, this is a public hearing for Board of Appeals. This is the case number 7671-2017. It's Verizon Wireless. It's 113 Ellington Boulevard. It's within a mixed-use development zone. It's a special exception rooftop telecommunications facility. And at this time, I'd ask Caroline Seiden to present the case to us.
Good evening. This is public hearing on Board of Appeals case BOA 7671-2017. The hearing was published in accordance with the requirements of the city charter and code on the city's website, and the property was properly posted. At the present time, there are 26 exhibits in the record files. They are referenced in an exhibit list in the files. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning and Code Administration offices during regular business hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, they will be deemed received in evidence. The application requests a special exception to permit a stealth rooftop telecommunications facility at 113 Ellington Boulevard, Gaithersburg, Maryland. The property is located in the MXD mixed-use zone. The special exception is allowed by Section 24-160D3D of the City of Gaithersburg Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 24 of the City Code, subject to the review of the Board of Appeals. Just for reference, the 113 Ellington Boulevard is highlighted in blue here. It is part of the Crown development. Ellington Boulevard is along the kind of shadowed side of the street here, and then Crown Park Avenue is on the other side, Fields Road to the north, and then a little bit of this is Copley Place to the, I guess, west. I did provide an addition and a new index of memoranda with 2 additional exhibits. They are, we have paper copies if you would like them when we get to that. They're also loaded onto the monitor, and we'll go through those during the presentation, but there are now 26 exhibits, and those new exhibits are in the applicant's response to some of the Planning Commission discussion and conditions regarding materials and location of the antennas. Harold Burnett, I can't ever pronounce your name, Bernard Zakowski is here from Network Building, and he's representing Verizon, so I will turn it over to him.
Okay, Mr. Bernowski, before we start, I'm going to ask you for an oath for the witness. Okay, so you just raise your right hand here. And do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So our application included a number of exhibits, photo sims, propagation maps, things like that. And justification statements. If you want me to delve into any of those items, or if you have any questions about those, I guess we can come back to them. I wanted to focus on my part of the presentation to address some of the concerns that the Planning Commission members had at the last meeting. The 2 of the sectors on the roof had been designed in stealth enclosures with a faux brick design, which would have been in this type of pattern. Their concern was that the brick pattern would dominate the view of that area from a distance. So they had recommended that they be changed to just a plain beige, which the material, the surface would be similar to this type material, but with obviously the color to match the beige accents that are on the building. Their bigger concern was with the sector that is on the front facade on Ellington Boulevard, above one of the main entrances. Underneath there's a roof overhang feature on that facade. And in the photo sims, this is the view 3 that you're seeing, and I have paper copies if you'd like a hard copy, if that helps at all. So one of the things that I had our engineers do was examine the size and location. The antenna itself is going to be, if this is the face of the building, the antenna is going to be facing south, going down Ellington Boulevard. So there are some limitations to the placement. I verified with our engineers and RF folks that the antenna can't go up on top of the building, because if you picture this building, it's got lots of ins and outs along the facade and parapets and things like that. And you can't put it on one of the recessed segments of the facade because you'd be shooting into the side of the building. So what we focused on doing was reducing the size of the enclosure around the antenna. It's just one antenna. The other 2 sectors are 2 antennas each, which is it's not even like what we would call a full site. A full site for us is 5 antennas per sector. So this is like a third of a typical macro site. So we were able to reduce the size of the enclosure from what had originally been proposed as 4 feet deep and 4 foot 9 inches wide, which the depth would have equaled the depth of the overhang. So in other words, the front of the enclosure would have come out more or less even with the front face of the overhang. To now it's just 3 foot deep by 3 foot wide. And the zoomed in view is to show that we're going to mimic the vertical lining that is on the facade, plus the single horizontal band that goes around towards the bottom of the enclosure. So Verizon is hoping that this, addresses the concerns about the visibility and the bulk of that particular sector, and keeping in mind that it's almost 70 foot tall. So the view on the bottom is not meant to try and deceive or anything by having it tucked up in the corner. It's really just representative of, if you're walking on that sidewalk, that overhang is going to create a shadow. So it is like a little dark little nook, and this is underneath of that. So we don't feel that it will be very visible. It will be visible, but not to the degree that it would disrupt the street front or the overall appearance of the building or the development as a whole. So with that, I'll open it up to, I guess, to any questions you might have of me on the design and the changes.
So what we're looking at here on the screen would be exhibit what?
This is exhibit number 20, it's part of exhibit number 26.
It'd be
Thank you
part of
for
exhibit number
asking.
26. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the difference then between what we're looking at here and what is in our exhibit.
We can go back to, it would be exhibit 16.
Okay.
We can go back to that. So this was the, no,
Do you have the original? Yeah.
did somewhere, or maybe I did it further back. Those were the original,
Yeah.
while we're going through, those were the original brick facade.
Right.
And that's
Oh,
the
okay.
original.
Okay.
You can
Right.
zoom in on it more if you would like.
And so the
a big
difference here
difference.
is purely a function of size.
Depth and width have
Depth
been
and width.
reduced. The
Uh-huh.
height has really not been able to reduce because the antenna is still the 6
Right.
foot single antenna. So
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
I'll pull up the other 2 sectors just so you see the new. So those are that's the
That's the new-
before, and that's the after.
As just the plain beige panel.
Right, that used to be
Okay.
brick, okay.
Do you have that same shot on the other,
Mm-hmm.
before and after?
That's before, and that's after.
And Stealth Industries, who is the stealth company that has worked with Verizon on a number of sites, they'll be going out and color sampling the building,
Right.
particular facades to match. So that's why I don't have an exact color. This is simply like the generic type material, and it will be a smooth surface as opposed to like a stucco or a brick. And then the color would obviously be matched, and I can provide those samples to staff once it's all been, determined by Stealth.
So the color would be, if I'm looking at proposed view 2, when we talk about the beige color, it would be similar to the band that's going around to the top of the windows there?
Correct.
Okay,
Right, you've got a number of horizontal bands on the
Yeah,
building that
yeah.
are like a beige sandstone type color.
that's the color,
Yes.
okay, sandstone, okay.
It's like
Great.
that. Okay.
I have another question, back to proposed view 3, just to get a sense of looking where the antenna is. I can see a shadow underneath the overhang. Could you just share, like, is the antenna coming out? Is the antenna going to be placed where the overhang is and up against it, or against the building?
It will be both. So the
Okay.
top of the enclosure will tie into the underside of the overhang.
Okay,
Use the pointer to show.
Oh,
You can zoom in
do I?
too,
Yeah.
I would
I
recommend.
can zoom in on it more, if I can.
yeah, this is where it's difficult because underneath that overhang, it is going to be
Use the
shadowed,
bottom,
and so
Caroline, you
Yeah.
Hmm?
there we go, okay. See, I see like a shadow right there that's in the artistic drawing there. Yeah, so-
that's actually the shadow from the picture that's taken of the
Oh.
facade during the day. So that's
Yeah, right,
now
right,
there,
so-
the shadow at the bottom of the enclosure, that is
Okay.
rendered in by the photo simulation
Okay.
technicians, because it will cast a small bit of shadow
Oh, of course.
on itself
Yeah,
or from itself.
yeah. Okay,
But other than that, it will be flush against the facade, tie into the bottom of the overhang, and the bottom of the enclosure will actually be enclosed and not open aired.
okay.
I just have a general question as to where this technology is going, just so I can wrap my head around the whole thing. So, in the old days, you would have wanted to put a cell phone tower in this area, would be a guess.
Yeah,
And the technology is now trying to move away from cell phone towers to these types of technology, or this type of setup for the communications, I guess, for lack of a better word.
yes. To a degree, most of the carriers, and Verizon is no exception, are trying to steer away from the towers, only from the standpoint of they're facing a capacity issue with their network, not so much that they need more towers for big areas to cover. It's the 5G phones using the video and the data and all that uses so much more bandwidth than just an old flip phone, which was just only for phone service. So if you imagine all the teenagers and stuff are on their phones 24/7, blah, 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 downloading videos and this and that, it's using up so much more of their network than what they can keep up with. And so these type of infill sites is partly for capacity or partly for coverage, but primarily for capacity. And they're trying to get into small cells, so especially in the high density urban areas where you can't even put towers, or you don't want to have macro sites every other building. You're doing lots of little small cells just to hit targeted high use, high population areas. You'll see a lot of jurisdictions that are trying to work with the public works offices and departments about putting them on light poles along streets, prime intersections, things like that. So it's just like individual 2 or 4 foot antennas instead of 15-foot antenna arrays on every rooftop.
Well, that was where my next question, because I knew it would, eventually I've seen pictures where they're on street signs and, run right along the street, kind of blend in.
Right.
And so something like, give me an example, like this technology versus that technology, is this just more coverage or more bandwidth?
This has more, this will cover more area than a single small cell. A single small cell might cover like the intersection of Ellington and Crown.
Okay.
You know, so it maybe covers a block and a half, something like that. This is kind of like an in-between. It's not a full macro site with 15, 6 and 8 foot antennas. So it'll cover more than a small cell, but not as much as a full-on macro site.
So this would give the Crown area a very good service, I guess.
Correct. This is going to
That's what
cover,
this is
right.
supposed to do.
Yeah, so if you look at so the prop maps will show it's going to provide additional coverage like south towards, what is it, Route 119?
So this is existing.
Right,
Do you want to go to?
yeah, and then the proposed.
It's proposed.
And this is the coverage just from, yes, it's just from this site. So it's primarily it's not going north towards 270, it's primarily going south towards Key West Avenue. What's this?
Great Seneca.
Great Seneca Highway, thank you, and Sam Ag Highways in
Okay.
that area. We have a site over there called Halcyon, which is to the northwest. That's probably the nearest tower site that I think we did like 7 or 8, 9 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, you know, in an area like this, towers are just not a good fit. And this building happens to be tall enough that it can get the job done, and it's, you know, works out pretty well.
Go ahead,
Quick comment.
please.
Yeah, but in the past, it's come before this committee before, there've been add-ons and everything. Do these have capabilities of add-ons in the future or not?
You mean just for Verizon, or like could other carriers go in?
Well, yeah, we've had a little bit of both where,
That's a little bit tougher question, because as a stealth facility, obviously to expand that would be fairly difficult. So I don't know that they would try and expand on this. I think if they ever needed something in the future, they would end up trying to do maybe a couple small cells in the area, or maybe do something on one of the other buildings.
Sure.
I don't know that it would really work out for them to be able to expand the enclosures that they're showing on this project. I mean, I think they would just end up too bulky.
Sure.
Just in general, the way the special exception would work, if another carrier were to want to come onto the rooftop of that building, this special exception would set the requirements of another carrier, in that they would then also need to do it in a stealth manner, because it would essentially be an amendment to this special exception. So they would need to do it in the same manner.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I did have a question though about specifically the antenna that's being placed in the overhang. Is there any kind of maintenance expectations that might have to be factored in there? Because as an apartment dweller, I noticed that seems to be a residential building. I just had a concern about that.
Yeah, it's a mix of office, retail, and residential. Residential on the upper floors, I believe. I think that the first floor
That's
is
what it appears at
yes.
least. Yeah.
I think the one thing that is the colors obviously have to be, you know, refreshed every so often, because they will fade. I mean, it's as with painting on any regular building, the color will fade out. So Verizon would just have to periodically be checking that and keep it up to snuff. So if it were fading, then they could refresh it.
Thank you.
Bird's nest, bee's nest.
Hopefully none of those. Since it's enclosed completely, there shouldn't be any problems inside of it. But no, I've never been asked that question of bees and birds nests. We do
Come
have
see my
osprey
building.
nests on the tower.
Come see my building and see every nook and cranny there is.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions from the board? Okay, and then is there any other additional testimony from any other parties here this evening? No? Okay. Well, if there's no further questions and no further testimony, can I have a motion to close the record?
I make a motion to close the record. I need to read this. I make a motion that the Board of Appeals, based on the findings, I move to close the record on BOA 7671-2017. And that was read without my glasses.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion to close the record passes 5-0. All right, let's see here. Now, this is board discussion. Do we have any further discussion amongst the board members regarding this special exception?
I think we pretty much went through what our concerns or extra questions during our little discussion before. So I have no further.
Oh, sorry, I just had a typographical comment on the draft resolution.
Oh, good.
Sorry. No, on page 2, I believe it's listed that there are 5 conditions from the planning commission when there are in fact 6. So if we can just make that amendment.
So when we get to that,
Yeah.
perhaps you'll want to take care of that then with the resolution when we get there. Any other comments?
I do appreciate the effort that Verizon took to meet the planning commission's recommendations as far as reducing the bulk of the proposed View 3 antenna.
Yeah, I think the evidence and testimony reflects what is required under the code and what the planning commission was expecting.
And I was just going to say, I think our technology keeps us on our toes and gets us a smaller and smaller type imprint and with greater coverage. I think it's very creative with the stealth technologies and what we're seeing here now. So I applaud the ability to accommodate. All right, any other? All right, okay, so now we need to, a motion to approve the application and the resolution.
Chair Ray, can I just
Yes.
wanted to interject.
Please.
There are 6 conditions currently in the draft. The 6th condition related to that antenna in the, that's actually on the screen now in View 3. And I don't know if you want to consider whether you want to take that condition away or not, depending on how you're planning to go.
May I interject? We still need to get the final drawings of what's proposed. We've
Yeah.
just seen, the simulations. We still need to get the final drawings on sheet C2 to reflect the changes.
They're on,
Were they resubmitted?
they're new, yeah, they're new drawings as well.
Okay.
These reflect.
Correct. The only real change is to the detail in the lower right corner called enlarged partial roof plan. Just the dimension is really all that changed, just to reflect that we were able to shrink it a little bit.
And that has some materials that are going to be around there.
I'm not
Want me to
sure.
make it bigger? Well, I would suggest that the condition number 5 actually be used for us to be able to get final samples of both patterns.
Okay. So you want
Because
maybe
we really don't have either
Okay.
one of those materials here to review. So it could either be something that you want staff to review and approve, or come back to you to review and approve.
If it's the pleasure of the board, we'll ask the staff to make the final determination, and perhaps with condition number 5 can be amended to reflect, to be approved with final samples by the staff. If you wanted to add that verbiage,
Mhm.
if that's the pleasure of the board. Okay. And Caroline, could you say that on condition number 6, the recommendation is that since it's already been presented to us tonight in testimony, that we no
Well,
longer have that as a
that's up-
condition?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. That's your recommendation, okay, or notice. Okay, so pleasure of the board to go with the first 5 conditions as presented?
That's fine.
Good.
Sounds good.
Any other comments? Okay, so now I'll call for the motion to approve the resolution.
I make a motion that the Board of Appeals, based on the findings and conclusions outlined in the draft revolution, yeah, that's not what we're doing today. Resolution. Judd would be proud, Hamilton on the brain. Approve special exception application BOA 7671-2017 and adopt the resolution BOA 7671-2017 with, as amended, per our discussion here.
Second?
Any other further discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Resolution passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Do we have anything this evening from Frank?
Well, I
Johnson?
think at the open meetings training, you had that from me last night. I know several attended and appreciate staff that came out too. We actually, this is a new effort partly because of a change in the law that now adds a further requirement to training, essentially that every board and commission designates somebody to receive training on the Open Meetings Act. And why that's so important is that then allows you, if there was a need to close the meeting, to go into closed session. If you don't designate somebody, the way the law is written, closed session wouldn't be possible. If you do designate somebody and they do within 90 days receive the training, it still would be possible, if you need to go into closed session, even if they weren't present. We just have to make sure to use the Attorney General's checkoff form, which lays everything out very carefully, and which we will probably begin using anyway, because that way we're covered either way. But in any event, it was very well attended. Thanks everybody for being there. I think we estimated it was either 80 or 85. And we actually had about 75 that had signed up, so a little unusual. And that had folks coming statewide as well, because this requirement is effective October 1st, and folks are suddenly realizing, yeah, we're going to have some sort of training under our belt in order to comply with that requirement. So anyway, thank you all for those who were there. Thank you for being there.
Thank you, Frank. And Caroline or Trudy, do we have anything else this evening?
No, I just want to thank you all also for being there. I thought it was
Yes.
useful, even though I've been here a long time. I learned a lot of new things, so that will be useful. The next meeting is October 11th if we get any new applications, but it is quite possible that meeting will not occur, and I'll be in touch about that. So,
Okay, all right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Guess
Make
they
a
want to
motion
stay.
that we adjourn the September 13th, 2017 meeting.
Okay. Motion is accepted, meeting is adjourned.